What is happening, DJ Talk family? How y'all doing today? First of all, welcome to the 104th episode of DJ Talk. Now, before we get started, I would like to send a special shout out to everyone that is having a great week. Not only a great week, but also a great day as well in the month of September. And all I want to say is that I hope you guys continue to win. And not just you guys, but also we. Hopefully, we continue to win and we continue to have success every day and every year of our lives. So, like I said, hopefully, we all win. So, if you are new to this channel, allow me to welcome you guys to D Nation family. So hopefully you enjoy it here. So sit back, relax, enjoy the ride. But most importantly, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, turn on the bell for notifications. Many more episodes to come, many more contests to come, and many more surprises to come. So stay tuned for more and get ready for it. So without any further ado, let's get right to it. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about a new topic. Only this time, we're going to change it up a little bit, if you know what I mean. Today we're gonna be doing something biblical, something that has never been done before until today. And believe me or not, I know you all will love it, and hopefully it will give you some knowledge that you need, and hopefully it will basically touch you in many ways, and hopefully by hearing this, hopefully will inspire you in many ways. Today we're going to be talking about, or should I say, today we're going to be talking and speaking about the story of Joseph. So for some of you that have a question, and you may ask, why did you choose this story to talk about? Well, earlier this year, I'm not going to say names, but earlier this year, I was asked by someone who I love dearly and treats me as a son, and asked me, why don't you do a story about Joseph? Do something biblical. Like, show the other side, my religion side, of what you learn and what it should be spoken about. So, and I've been thinking about that, and many months of thinking about it, and you know what? We're finally here. So I decided the time was now to tell the story. And to be honest with you, I'm so happy that it came at a perfect time and a perfect moment. So I am so honored to do it, and it's just special. And hopefully you guys love it, like I said. So the question is, who is Joseph? Joseph was one of Jacob's 12 sons and was the most loved son of his father. Israel given the famous robe of many colors. Joseph, son of Jacob and Rachel, lived in the land of Canaan with 10 half-brothers, one full brother, and at least one half-sister. He was Rachel's firstborn and Jacob's 11th son. Joseph was a young man of 17, was tending the flocks with his brothers, the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives, and he brought their father a bad report about them. Now Israel loved Joseph more than any of his other sons, because he had been born to him in his old age. And he made an Amet robe for him. When his brothers saw that their father loved them more than any of them, they hated him and could not speak of any kind of word to him. Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him even more. He said to them, "Listen to this dream I had. We are all binding sheaves of grain out in the field when suddenly my sheaf rose and stood upright, while your sheaves gathered around mine and bowed down to it." His brothers said to him, "Do you intend to reign over us? Will you actually rule us?" And they hated him even more and more because of his dream. And what he said, then had another dream, and he told it to his brothers. "Listen," he said, "I had another dream, and this time the sun and the moon and 11 stars were bowing down to me." When he told his father as well as his brothers, his father rebuked him and said, "What is this dream you had? Will your mother and I and your brothers actually come and bow down to the ground before you?" His brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in mind. Now his brothers had gone to graze their father's flocks near Shechem, and Israel said to Joseph, "As you know, your brothers are grazing the flocks near Shechem. Come, I am going to send you to them." "Very well," he replied. So he said to them, "Go and see if all is well with your brothers and with the flocks, and bring word back to me." Then he sent him off from the valley of Hebron. When Joseph arrived in Shechem, a man found him wandering around in the fields and asked him, "What are you looking for?" And he replied, "I'm looking for my brothers. Can you tell me where they are grazing their flocks?" "They have moved on from here," the man answered. "I said to them, 'Let us go to Dothan.'" So Joseph went after his brothers and found them near Dothan, but they saw him in a distance. And before he reached them, they plotted to kill him. "Here comes that dreamer," they said to each other. "Come now, let's kill him and throw him into one of these cisterns and say that a ferocious animal devoured him. Then we'll see what comes of his dreams." When Reuben, the older brother, heard this, he tried to rescue him from their hand. "Let's not take his life," he said. "Don't shed any blood. Throw him into the cistern here in the wilderness, but do not lay a hand on him." Reuben said to this to rescue him from them and take him back to his father. So when Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped him of his robe, the ultimate robe he was wearing. They looked at him and threw him into the cistern. The cistern was empty. There was no water in it. As they sat down to eat their meal, they looked up and saw a caravel of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead. Their camels were loaded with spices, balm, and myrrh, and they were on their way to take them down to Egypt. Judah said to his brothers, "What will we gain if we kill our brother and cover up his blood? Come, let's sell him to the Ishmaelites and not lay our hands on him. After all, he is our brother, our own flesh and blood." His brothers agreed. So when the Midianite merchants came by, his brothers pulled Joseph out of the, well, let's just say they pull him out of the hole, if you know what I mean, and sold him for 20 shekels of silver to the Ishmaelites, who took him to Egypt. When Reuben returned to the hole and saw that Joseph was not there, he tore his clothes. He went back to his brothers and said, "The boy isn't there. Where can I turn now?" Then they got Joseph's robe, slaughtered a goat, and dipped the robe in the blood. Then they took the robe back to their father and said, "We found this. Examine it to see whether it's your son's robe." He recognized it and said, "It is my son's robe. Some ferocious animal has devoured him. Joseph has surely been torn to pieces." And then Jacob tore his clothes, put on sackcloth, and mourned for his sons many days. All his sons and daughters came to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. "No," he said, "I will continue to mourn until I join my son in the grave." So his father wept for him. Meanwhile, the Midianites sold Joseph in Egypt to Potiphar, one of Pharaoh's officers, the captain of the guard. Now Joseph had been taken down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, and Egyptian, bought him from the Ishmaelites, who had taken him down there. The Lord was with Joseph, and he was a successful man, and he was in the house of his master, the Egyptian. And his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord made all he did to prosper in his hands. So Joseph found favor in his sight, and served them. Then he made him overseer of his house, and all that he had put under his authority. So it was, from that time he had made him overseer of his house, all that he had, that made the Lord bless the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. And the blessing of the Lord was all that he had in the house and in the field. Thus he left all that he had in Joseph's hands, and he did not know what he had expected for the bread which he ate. Now Joseph was a handsome in form and appearance, and it came to pass after these things that his master's wife, casting longing eyes on Joseph, in other words, looking at him or checking him out, and she said, "Lie with me." Like, in other words, lie down with her. But he refused and said to his master's wife, "Look, my master does not know what is with me in the house, and he has committed all that he has to my hand. There is no one greater in this house than I, nor has he kept back anything from me. But you, because you are his wife, how then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God?" So it was, as she spoke to Joseph day by day, that he did not heed her to lie with her or to be with her. But it happened about this time, when Joseph went into the house to do his work, and none of the men of the house were inside. Then she caught him by his garment and saying, "Lie with me." But his garment in her hand and fled and ran outside. And so she kept his garment with her until his master came home. Then she spoke to him with words like these, saying, "The Hebrew servant who you brought to us came into me to mock me." So it happened as I lifted my voice and cried out, that he left his garment with me and fled outside. So it was, when his master heard the voice which his wife spoke to him, saying, "Your servant did this to me after this matter," that his anger was aroused. Then Joseph's master took him and put him into the prison, a place where the king's prisoners were confined, and he was there in the prison. But the Lord was with Joseph and showed him mercy and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. And the keeper of the prison committed to Joseph's hand all the prisoners who were in the prison, whatever they did there, and it was his doing. The keeper of the prison did not look into anything that was under Joseph's authority, because the Lord was with him. And whatever he did, the Lord made it prosper. It came to pass after these things that the butler and the baker of the king of Egypt offended their Lord, the king of Egypt. And the Pharaoh was angry with these two officers, the chief butler and the chief baker. So he put them in custody in the house of the captain of the guard, in the prison, the place where Joseph was confined. And the captain of the guard charged Joseph with them, and he served them. So they were in custody for a while. Then the butler and the baker of the king of Egypt, who were confined in the prison, had a dream, both of them, each man's dream in one night, and each man's dream with its own interpretation. And Joseph came in to them in the morning and looked at them and saw that they were sad. So he asked the Pharaoh's officer who were with him in the custody of his Lord's house, saying, "Why do you look sad? Why do you look so sad today?" And they said to him, We each have a dream, and there is no interpreter of it." So Joseph said to them, "Do not interpretation belong to God? Tell them to me, please." Then the chief butler told his dream to Joseph and said to him, "Behold, in my dream a vine was before me, and in the vine were 3 branches. It was as tough and mudded. Its blossom shot forth, and its clusters brought forth ripe grapes. Then Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes and pressed them into Pharaoh's cups, and placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand." And Joseph said to him, "This is the interpretation of it. The 3 branches are 3 days. Within the 3 days, Pharaoh will lift your head up and restore you to show kindness to me, and make mention of me to Pharaoh, and get me out of this house. For indeed I was stolen away from the land of the Hebrews, and also I have done nothing here that they should put me into the dungeon. When the chief baker saw that the interpretation was good, he said to Joseph, I was also in my dream, and there were three white baskets on my head, and the other uppermost basket were all a kind of baked goods for Pharaoh. And the birds ate them all out of the basket on my head. So Joseph said and answered and said, This is my interpretation of it. 3 baskets are 3 days. Within 3 days, the Pharaoh will lift off your head from you and hang you on a tree, and the birds will eat your flesh from you. Now it came to pass on the 3rd day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, that he made a feast for all his servants, and he lifted up the head of the chief butler and of the chief baker amongst his servants. Then he restored the chief butler to his butlership again, and he placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand. But he hanged the chief baker as Joseph had interpreted to them. Yet the chief butler did not remember Joseph, but forgot him. And then it came to pass at the end of 2 full years that Pharaoh had a dream, and behold, he stood by the river. Suddenly there came up the river 7 cows, fine looking and fat, and they fed them into the meadow. Then behold, 7 other cows came up after them out of the river, ugly and gaunt, and stood by the other cows on the bank of the river. And the ugly and gaunt cows ate up the 7 fine looking and fat cows. So Pharaoh awoke as he slept and dreamed a second time, and suddenly 7 heads of grain came up on one stalk, and plump and good. Then behold, 7 thin heads, belighted by the east wind, sprang up after them, and the 7 thin heads devoured the 7 plump and full heads. So Pharaoh awoke, and indeed it was a dream. Now it came to pass in the morning that his spirit was touched, and he sent and called for the magicians of Egypt and all its wise men. And the Pharaoh told them his dreams, but there was no one who could interpret them for Pharaoh. Then the chief butler spoke to Pharaoh, saying, I remember my faults this day, when the Pharaoh was angry with his servants and put me in custody in the house of the captain of the guard. Both me and the chief baker, we each had a dream in one night. He and I, each of us dreamed according to the interpretation of his own dream. Now there was a young Hebrew man with us, there a servant of the captain of the guard, and we told him, and he interpreted our dreams for us. To each man he interpreted according to his own dream. And it came to pass, just as he interpreted for us, so it happened. He restored me to my office, and he hanged him. Then Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they brought him quickly out of the dungeon, and he changed his clothing, and came to Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, I had a dream, and there was no one who can interpret it. But I have heard it said of you that you can understand a dream to interpret it. And so Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, It is not me. It is not in me. God will give Pharaoh an answer of peace. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, Behold, in my dream I stood on the bank of the river. Suddenly 7 cows came up out of the river, fine looking and fat. And they fed in the meadow. Then behold, 7 other cows came up after them, poor and very ugly and gaunt, such ugliness as I have never seen in all the land of Egypt. And the gaunt and ugly cows ate up the first 7, the fat cows. When they had eaten them up, no one would have known that they have eaten them, for they were as just as ugly as at the beginning. So I awoke, as I saw in my dreams, and suddenly 7 heads came up on one stalk, full and good. Then behold, 7 heads withered, thin, and blinded by the east wind, sprang after them. And after the thin heads devoured the 7 good heads. So I told this to the magicians, but there was no one who could explain it to me. Then Joseph said this to Pharaoh, The dreams of Pharaoh are one. God has shown Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good cows are 7 years. And the 7 good heads are 7 years. The dreams are one. And the 7 thin and ugly cows came up after them are 7 years. And the 7 empty heads blighted by the east wind are 7 years of famine. The thing is which I have spoken to Pharaoh. God has shown Pharaoh what he is about to do. Indeed, 7 years of great plenty will come throughout in the land of Egypt. But after them 7 years of famine will arise, and the penalty will be forgotten in the land of Egypt, and the famine will deplete the land, so that the penalty will not be known in the land because of the famine following, for it will be very severe. And the dream was repeated to Pharaoh twice, because the thing is established by God, and God will shortly bring it to pass. Now therefore, let Pharaoh select a discerning and wise man, and set him over the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh do this, and let him appoint officers over the land, to collect 1/5 of the produce of the land of Egypt in the 7 plentiful years, and let them gather all the food of those good years that are coming, and store up grain under the authority of Pharaoh, and let them keep food in the cities. Then that food shall be as a reserve for the land for the 7 years of famine, which shall be in the land of Egypt, that the land may not perish during the famine. When Jacob saw that there was a grain in Egypt, Jacob said to his sons, Why don't you look at one another? And he said, Indeed, I have heard that there is grain in Egypt. Go down to that place and buy for us there, that we may live and not die. So Joseph's 10 brothers were down to buy grain. in Egypt. But Jacob did not send Joseph's brother, that's little brother, Benjamin, with his brothers. For he said, lest some calamity befall him. And the sons of Israel went to buy grain among those who journeyed. For the famine was in the land of Canaan. Now Joseph was governed over the land, and it was he who sold to all the people of the land. And Joseph's brother came and bowed down before him with their faces to the earth. Joseph saw his brothers and recognized them, but he acted as a stranger to them and spoke roughly to them. Then he said to them, where do you come from? And they said, from the land of Canaan to buy food. So Joseph recognized his brothers, but they did not recognize him. Then Joseph remembered the dreams which he had dreamed about them, and said to them, you are spies. You have come to see the nakedness of the land. And they said, no, my lord, but your servant hath come to buy food. We are all one man's son. We are honest men. Your servants are not spies. But he said to them, no, but you have come to see the nakedness of the land. And they said, your servants are 12 brothers, the sons of one man in the land of Canaan. And in fact, the youngest is with our father today, and one is no more. And Joseph said to them, it is as I spoke to you, saying, you are spies. In this manner you should be tested by the life of Pharaoh. You shall not leave this place unless your youngest brother comes here. Send one of you and let him bring your brother, and you shall be kept in prison, that your words may be tested to see whether there is any truth in you, or else by the life of Pharaoh, surely you are spies. So he put them all together in prison 3 days. Then Joseph said to them on the 3rd day, do this and live, for I fear God. If you are honest men, let one of your brothers be confined to your prison house. But you go and carry grain for the famine of your house, and bring your youngest brother to me, so your words will be verified, and you shall not die. So they did so. Then they said to one another, we are truly guilty concerning our brother, for we saw this anguish of his soul when he pleaded with us, and we would not hear. Therefore the distress has come upon us. And Reuben answered them, saying, did I not speak to you, saying, do not sin against the boy? And you would not listen. Would you not listen? Therefore, behold, his blood is now required of us. But they did not know that Joseph understood them, for he spoke to them through an interpreter, and he turned himself away from them and wept. Then he returned to them again and talked with them. And he took Simeon from them and bonded him before their eyes. Then Joseph gave a command to fill their sacks with grain, to restore every man's money to his sack, and give them provision for the journey. Thus he did for them. So they loaded their donkeys with grain and departed from there. But as one of them opened his sack to give his donkey fed at an encampment, he saw his money, and there it was in the mouth of his sack. So he said this to his brothers, "My money has been restored, and there it is in my sack." Then their hearts failed them, and they were afraid, saying to one another, "What is this that God has done to us?" Then they went to Jacob their father in the land of Canaan, and told him all that had happened to them, saying, "The man who is Lord of the land spoke roughly to us, and took us for spies of the country. But we said to him, 'We're honest men, we are not spies. We are 12 brothers, sons of our father. One is no more. The youngest is with our father this day in the land of Canaan.' Then the man, Lord of the country, said to us, 'By this I will know that you are honest men. Leave one of your brothers here with me. Take food for the famine of your household, and be gone, and bring your youngest brother to me, so I shall know that you are not spies, but that you are honest men. I will grant your brother to you, and you may trade in the land.' Then it happened, as they emptied their sacks, that surprisingly each man's bundle of money was in his sack. And when their father saw the bundles of money, they were afraid. And Jacob their father said to them, 'You have bereaved me. Joseph is no more, Simeon is no more. Now you want to take Benjamin? All these things are against me.' Then Reuben spoke to his father, saying, 'Kill my 2 sons. If I do not bring him back to you, put him in my hands, and I will bring him back to you.' But he said, 'My soul shall not go down with you, for his brother is dead, and he is left alone. If any calamity shall befall him along the way in which you go, then you would bring down my gray hair with sorrow to the grave.' Now the famine was severe in the land, and it came to pass, when they had eaten up the grain which they had brought from Egypt, that their father said to them, 'Go back, buy us a little food.' But Judah spoke to him, saying, 'The man solemnly warned us, saying, You shall not see my face unless your brother is with you. If you send our brother with us, we will go down and buy you food. But if you will not send him, we will not go down.' For the man said to us, 'You shall not see my face unless your brother is with you.' And Israel said, 'Why did you deal so wrongfully with me, as to tell the man whether you had still another brother?' But they said, 'The man asked us pointedly about ourselves and our family, saying, Is your father still alive? Have you another brother?' And we told him according to these words. Could we possibly have known that he would say, 'Bring your brother down'?" Then Judah said to his father, Israel his father, "Send the lad with me, and we will arise and go, that we may live and not die, both we and you, and also our little one. I myself will be surely for him. From my hand you shall require him. If I do not bring him back to you and set him before you, then let me bear the blame forever. For if we had not lingered, we surely by now we would have returned the second time." And their father Israel said to them, "If it must be so, then do this. Take some of the best fruits of the land in your vessels and carry down a present for the man, a little balm and a little honey, spices and myrrh, pistachio nuts and almonds. Take double money in your hand, and take back in your hand the money that was returned in the mouth of your sacks. Perhaps it was an oversight. Take your brother also, and arise and go to the man, and may God Almighty give you mercy before the man, that he may release your other brother, and Benjamin. If I have bereaved, I am bereaved." So the men that took the present, and Benjamin, the little brother, and they took double money in their hand, and arose and went down to Egypt. And they stood before Joseph. When Joseph saw Benjamin with them, he said to the steward of his house, "Take this man to my home, and slaughter an animal, and make ready, for these men will dine with me at noon." Then the man did as Joseph ordered, and the man brought the men into Joseph's house. Now the men were afraid because they were brought into Joseph's house, and they said, "It is because of the money which was returned in our sacks the first time. Now we are brought in, so that he may make a case against us and seize us, to take us as slaves with our donkeys." When they drew near to the steward of Joseph's house, they talked with him at the door of the house, and said, "O sir, we indeed came down the first time to buy food. But it happened, when we came down to the encampment, that we opened our sacks, and there each man's money was in the mouth of his sacks, our money in full weight, so we have brought it back in our hands." We have brought down other money in our hands to buy food. We do not know who put our money in our sacks. But he said, "Peace be with you. Do not be afraid. Your God and the God of your father has given you treasure in your sacks. I had your money." Then he brought Simeon out to them. So the man brought the men into Joseph's house and gave them water. And they washed their feet and they fed their donkeys. Let's say it like that. They fed their donkeys. And they made a present ready for Joseph's coming at noon. For they had heard that they would eat bread there. And then when Joseph came home, they brought him the present which was in the hand in the house, and bowed down before him to the earth. Then he asked them about their well-being and said, "Is your father well, the old man of whom you spoke? Is he still alive?" And they answered, "Your servant, our father, is in good health. He is still alive." And they bowed their head down and prostrated themselves. Then spoke, "Is he still alive?" Then he lifted his eyes and saw his brother Benjamin, his mother's son, and said, "Is this your younger brother whom you spoke to me?" And he said, "God be gracious to you, my son." Now his heart yearned for his brother. So Joseph made haste and sought somewhere to weep. And he went into his chamber and wept there. Then he washed his face and came out and restrained himself and said, "Serve the bread." So they set him a place by himself, and them by themselves, and the Egyptians who ate with him by themselves, because the Egyptians could not eat food with the Hebrews, for that is an abomination to the Egyptians. They sat before him, the firstborn accordingly to his birthright, and the youngest according to his youth. And the men who looked in astonishment at one another. Then he took servings to them from before him. But Benjamin's servant was 5 times as much as any of theirs. So they drank and were married with him. And he commanded the steward of his house to fill the men's sack with food, as much as they can carry, and put each man's money in the mouth of his sack. Also put my cup, the silver cup, in the mouth of the sack of my youngest, and his grain money. So he did accordingly to the word that Joseph had spoken. As soon as the morning dawned, the men were sent away, and their donkeys. When they had gone out of the city and were not yet far off, Joseph said to the stewards, "Get up, follow the men, and when you have overtaken them, said to them, Why have you prepared evil for good? It's not this the one from which my Lord drinks, and with which he indeed practiced divination? You have done evil in so doing." So he overtook them, and he spoke to them these same words. And they said to him, "Why does my Lord say these words? Far be it from us that your servants should do such a thing. Look, we brought back to you from the land of Canaan the money which we found in the mouth of our sacks. How then could we steal silver or gold from your Lord's house? With whomever of your servants it is found, let him die, and we also will be my Lord's slave." And he said, "Now also let it be according to your words. He with whom it is found shall be my slave, and you shall be blameless. Then each man speedily let his sack down to the ground, and each opened his sacks. So he searched. He began with the oldest, and left off with the youngest. And the cup was found in Benjamin's sack. Then they tore their clothes. Each man loaded his donkey and returned to the city. So Judah and his brothers came to Joseph's house, and he was still there. And they fell before him on the ground. And Joseph said to them, "What deed is this you have done? Did you not know that such a man as I can certainly practice divination?" Then Judah said, "What shall we say to my Lord? What shall we speak? Or how shall we clear ourselves? God has found out the iniquity of your servants. Here we are, my Lord's slave, both we and he also, with whom the cup was found." But he said, "Far be it from me that I should do so. The man in whose hand the cup was found, he shall be my slave. As for you, go up in peace to your father." Then Judas came near to him and said, "O my Lord, let your servant speak a word in my Lord's hearing, and do not let your anger burn against your servant. So for you are like Pharaoh." My Lord asked his servant, saying, "Have you a father or a brother?" And we said to my Lord, "We have a father, an old man, and a child of his old age, who is young, and his brother's dead, and he alone is left of his mother's children, and his father loves him." Then you say this to your servants, "Bring him down to me, and I may set my eyes on him." And we said to my Lord, "The lad cannot leave his father. If he should leave his father would die." But you said to your servants, "Unless your youngest brother comes down with you, you shall see my face no more." So it was, when we went up to your servant, my father, then we told him the words of my Lord. And our father said, "Go back and buy us a little food." But we said, "We cannot go down if our youngest brother is with us. Then we will go down, for we may not see the man's face unless our youngest brother is with us." Then your servant, my father, said to us, "You know that my wife bore me 2 sons, and the one went out from me, and I said, 'Surely he is torn to pieces,' and I have not seen him since. But if you take this one also from me, and calamity befalls him, you shall bring down my gray hair with sorrow to the grave. Now therefore, when I come to your servant, my father, and the lad is not with us, since his life is bounded up in the lad's life, it will happen when he sees that the lad is not with us, and that he will die. So your servant will bring down the gray hairs of your servant, our father, with sorrow to the grave. For your servant becomes shortly for the lad to my father, saying, If I do not bring him back to you, then I shall bear the blame before my father forever. Now therefore, please, let your servant remain instead of the lad as slave to my lord, and let the lad go up with his brothers. For how shall I go up to my father if the lad is not with us? Or better yet, not with me. Least perhaps I see the evil that would come upon my father. Then Joseph could not restrain himself before all of those who stood by him, and he cried out, Make everyone go out from me. So no one stood with him, while Joseph made himself known to his brothers and wept out loud, and the Egyptians in the house of Pharaoh heard it. Then Joseph said to his brother, I am Joseph. Does my father still live? But his brothers could not answer him, for they were dismayed in his presence. And Joseph said to his brothers, Please come near me. So they came near. Then he said, I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into Egypt. But now do not therefore be grieved or angry with yourselves, because you sold me here. For God set me before you to preserve your life. For these 2 years the famine had been in the land, and there was still 5 years in which there will be neither plowing nor harvesting. And God sent me before you to preserve a posterity for you in the earth, and to save your lives by a great deliverance. So now it is not you who sent me here, but God, and he has made me a father to Pharaoh, lord of all his house, and ruler throughout the land of Egypt. Hurry and go up to my father and say to him, Thus says your son Joseph, God has made me lord of all Egypt. Come down to me. Do not tarry. You shall dwell in the land of Goshen, and you shall be near to me. You and your children and your children's children, your flocks, your herds, and all that you have. There I will provide for you, lest you and your household and all that you have come to poverty, for there are still 5 years of famine. And behold, your eyes and the eyes of my brothers Benjamin see that it is my mouth that speaks to you. So you shall tell my father all my glory in Egypt, and of all that you have seen, and you shall hurry and bring my father down here. Then he fell on his father Benjamin's neck and wept, and Benjamin wept on his neck. Moreover, he kissed all of his brothers and wept over them. And after that, his brothers talked with him. Now that the report of it was heard in the Pharaoh's house, saying, Joseph's brothers have come. So it pleased Pharaoh and his servants well. And the Pharaoh said to Joseph, Say to your brothers, do this, load your animals and depart, go to the land of Canaan. Bring your father and household and come to me. I will give you the best of the land of Egypt, and you will eat the fat of the land. Now you are commanded, do this. Take parts of your land of the land of Egypt for your little ones and your wives. Bring your father and come. Also, do not be concerned about your goods, for the best of all the lands of Egypt is yours. Then the sons of Israel did so, and Joseph gave them carts according to the command of Pharaoh, and he gave them provision for the journey. He gave to all of them, and to each man changes of garments. But to Benjamin he gave 300 pieces of silver and 5 changes of garments. And he sent to his fathers these things: 10 donkeys loaded with the good things of Egypt, and 10 female donkeys loaded with grain, bread, and food for his father for the journey. So he sent his brothers away, and they departed. And he said to them, see that you do not become troubled along the way. That they went up out of Egypt and came to the land of Canaan, to Jacob their father. Then they told him, Joseph is still alive, and he is governed over all of the land of Egypt. And Jacob's heart stood still, because he did not believe them. But when they told him all of the words which Joseph had said to them, and when he saw the carts which Joseph had had sent to carry him, the spirit of Jacob their father revived. Then Israel said, it is enough. Joseph my son is still alive. I will go and see him before I die. Wow, long story. So as we learned today, it's a perfect example about life that we surprised, that everything will surprise us in a million ways. Any gift that is given to us, we shall cherish it for the rest of our lives. Even though there may be some people that are jealous of what you have, and want to do you harm, or better yet, want to do harm on you, and pray for your downfall. But at the end of the day, we have to have a forgiving heart, just like Joseph. When he forgave his brothers for not only trying to kill him, but also selling him for slavery as well. So, let's be humble about everything that happens in life, and let's be thankful of what we have. So before I wrap up this episode, I want to say, or should I say a special episode, I want to say a few things here, and hopefully it will touch you, and not only touch you, but also basically bless you as well. Continue to be humble and be thankful of what you have. I'll repeat it again for the people in the back. Continue to be humble and be thankful of what you have. So thank you guys for tuning into this special episode. Thank you for the love and support. I appreciate it. And most importantly, stay tuned for more episodes of DJ Talk. Peace out. Never give up. Peace out and have a good night.